They may look like just ordinary pennies, but what if I told you that inside your pocket change could be a hidden treasure worth thousands of dollars? Across America, collectors are hunting day and night for rare 1-cent coins that most people don't even realize they own, from tiny minting errors to forgotten designs. These small copper coins have turned regular people into lucky finders of unbelievable fortune. Imagine finding a penny from the early 1900s that could sell for more than your monthly salary, or spotting a coin with a rare double-die error that collectors will pay thousands to own. Today we're revealing 5 of the rarest 1-cent U.S. penny coins that could be hiding right under your nose. So before you spend that penny or toss it into a jar, watch this video till the end, because one of these coins might just change your life forever. In the world of American coinage, there are certain years that may seem ordinary at first glance, but upon closer inspection they carry with them a deeper story, and one such year is 2002, when the Lincoln penny continued its role as one of the most widely recognized and collected coins in United States history, and for a YouTube channel dedicated to rare coins and the fascinating details that lie beneath the surface. The 2002 Lincoln cent is a subject that offers layers of history, economy, artistry, and cultural meaning that can easily unfold into a 2-hour narrative that keeps viewers engaged and captivated. Now imagine beginning with the origins of the Lincoln penny itself, a coin first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB sparked controversy that lives on among collectors. This small copper coin quickly became more than just currency. It became a symbol of American ideals and the connection of a nation to one of its most beloved presidents. By 2002, the Lincoln cent had already crossed nearly a full century of circulation, undergoing changes in composition, design, and minting practices. And yet it still carried Brenner's portrait of Lincoln, a constant face in American pocket change throughout wars, depressions, social upheavals, and technological revolutions. The hook comes alive when we step into 2002 itself, a year that represented a turning point in the United States Mint's journey as it balanced tradition with modernity. Collectors know that while the 2002 Lincoln penny may not appear as rare as coins struck decades earlier, it is precisely the small details the Mint marks, the minting process, the errors, the condition, and the historical context that make this year worth diving into for hours on end. For instance, the coinage of 2002 saw continued use of the copper-plated zinc composition, a change that had been instituted back in 1982 when the rising cost of copper forced the Mint to shift away from the traditional bronze alloy. So every 2002 penny is in fact a reflection of an economic decision made 20 years earlier, tying it back to the inflationary pressures of the late 20th century, and giving us a chance to explore how global markets and resource scarcity can change even the smallest objects we take for granted. From here, the story deepens into the specific minting history of the 2002 Lincoln penny, with coins struck at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each carrying its own significance. The Philadelphia and Denver coins entered circulation in the hundreds of millions, but it is in the subtle differences in strike quality, die wear, and error varieties that collectors find treasure. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins in limited numbers, highly polished with mirrored surfaces and sharp details designed specifically for collectors. These proof sets are windows into the artistry of the Mint and represent a contrast to the mass production of business strike coins. Each of these aspects could take an entire segment of a 2-hour video breaking down how proofs are made, how they differ from circulation coins, and how even a single proof penny from 2002 in pristine condition can be valued significantly higher than its face value. Another layer comes from the culture of coin collecting itself. By 2002, the modern collector community was thriving. The internet had already transformed the way coins were bought, sold, and studied. Online forums, auction houses, and grading services had given collectors new tools to analyze coins from every angle. So the 2002 penny becomes part of a bigger narrative about how the digital age reshaped the ancient hobby of numismatics, tying a simple cent into the broader human story of technology, globalization, and culture. Of course, the heart of the hook comes when we explore the possibility of rare errors in the 2002 Lincoln cent: doubled, dies off, center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes or coins struck on transitional planchets. These minting mistakes are the stuff of legends among collectors because they turn what appears to be a common coin into a valuable rarity worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. A long deep dive into how these errors occur inside the mint's presses, how quality control sometimes fails, and how eagle-eyed collectors discover them in pocket change can keep an audience glued to the screen. Finally, the story expands beyond just the coin itself to Abraham Lincoln's enduring image on American currency. Why has his portrait remained virtually unchanged for over a century? What does this say about his symbolic role in American identity? How does the Lincoln penny compare to other presidential coinage? And why does it continue to resonate, even in an era when many question whether the 1-cent piece should even remain in circulation? By threading these questions through the journey of the 2002 penny, you create not just a coin story, but a history lesson, an economic reflection, and a cultural exploration. This is the kind of hook that can stretch into a 2-hour professional history documentary for YouTube. It begins with the roots of the Lincoln cent, travels through its economic transformations, dives into the specifics of 2002. Mintage explores mint marks, proof sets, and error coins, connects with the digital age of collecting, and circles back to the legacy of Abraham Lincoln himself. It promises viewers not just a lesson in numismatics, but a sweeping journey through American history told through the lens of a single coin. When you hold a coin in your hand, you are holding more than just a piece of metal. You are holding a silent witness to the time in which it was struck, a fragment of history, pressed into copper and zinc, and carried through millions of hands across the nation. And when we turn our attention to the Lincoln penny of 2002, we discover a coin that may appear ordinary to the casual observer, but to the careful student of numismatics, it is a coin that bridges nearly a century of tradition with the unfolding story of modern America. The 2002 Lincoln penny is more than just a cent. It is a reflection of a minting system that had already evolved through wars, economic crises, changes in technology, and debates about the very future of the 1-cent piece itself. This coin carries forward the legacy of a design born in 1909 when the United States celebrated the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln was chosen not only to honor one of the nation's greatest leaders, but to mark the first time a president had ever appeared on a circulating American coin. That decision set the stage for a tradition that still continues today, and by 2002, nearly 100 years later, Brenner's vision of Lincoln remained untouched. On the obverse side of the penny, a symbol of consistency and reverence, while the reverse carried the image of the Lincoln Memorial, a design first introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The hook for collectors lies in the fact that by the time 2002 arrived, the Lincoln cent was no longer the humble bronze coin it had been for most of the 20th century since 1982. The rising cost of copper had forced the mint to change its composition to copper-plated zinc, giving us a lighter coin with different wear characteristics and different toning patterns on its surface. So every 2002 penny is in fact the result of a compromise between tradition and economy, linking this small coin to the larger story of global resource markets, government policy, and the everyday economy of American life. And yet what makes 2002 truly fascinating is not just the coin itself, but the world in which it was born. This was a period of transition for the United States Mint, which had to balance enormous production numbers with growing collector demand for proof sets and special issues. It was a time when millions of ordinary pennies rolled out of Philadelphia and Denver, destined for circulation, while the San Francisco Mint struck proofs in carefully controlled conditions designed to appeal to collectors who demanded beauty and perfection. It was also a year when coin collecting itself was being reshaped by the internet as auction houses, forums, and grading companies moved into the digital age, creating an entirely new way for collectors to hunt down rarities and share discoveries. The 2002 penny thus becomes a portal into the story of numismatics in the 21st century, but what truly grips the imagination and what can fuel hours of discussion are the errors and varieties of the 2002 Lincoln, cent for every year of mintage. The presses of the mint sometimes produce coins that are slightly or even dramatically different from what was intended. Doubled, dies-off center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, transitional errors. All of these can transform a coin worth just 1 cent into a treasure valued in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The thrill of finding such a piece is what drives collectors to examine their change under magnifying glasses and microscopes, and in 2002, this pursuit was no different. The possibility of discovering a rare variety tucked away in circulation is what keeps this year alive in the minds of hobbyists. And then there is the enduring face of Abraham Lincoln himself, his portrait on. The penny has now outlasted wars, economic depressions, political upheavals, and even debates about whether the cent should be abolished. It has been carried by school children, soldiers, workers, and presidents. It has been lost in couches collected, in jars, and passed along in countless small acts of trade and charity. To tell the story of the 2002 Lincoln penny is to tell the story of a nation that still honors Lincoln's memory on its smallest coin, and to ask why, after nearly a century, his image remains the most familiar face in American coinage. Have you ever stopped to think that the small copper-colored coin resting in your pocket could hold within it a story of American history, artistry, politics, economics, and the legacy of one of the nation's most iconic presidents? The Lincoln penny has been in circulation since 1909. And for over a century, it has been more than just a piece of change. It has been a symbol of national pride and continuity across generations. And the 2007 Lincoln penny might seem like just another ordinary cent to the untrained eye. But in truth, it carries with it the culmination of decades of design, choices, shifts in metal composition, and the anticipation of a monumental change in the design that was about to come only 2 years later when America would celebrate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and usher in a completely new era for the cent coinage. To understand the full significance of the 2007 penny, we need to step back and revisit the story of the Lincoln cent itself, beginning in 1909, when the United States Mint introduced the first coin to ever feature a real historical figure rather than a symbolic allegorical image. This was a radical departure from the traditions of coinage design, and Abraham Lincoln was chosen, not only because of his role as the 16th president, but also because the year marked the 100th anniversary of his birth. Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian immigrant and skilled engraver, was commissioned to create the portrait, and the resulting design with Lincoln's bust on the obverse quickly became one of the most beloved coin designs in the history of American currency. Fast forward to 1959, when the reverse of the coin was changed to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the wheat stalks with the Lincoln Memorial designed by Frank Gasparo, and for the next 50 years this image of the memorial would define the cent. So when we arrive at 2007, we are looking at one of the very last years of this classic memorial reverse, and that alone makes the 2007 penny a fascinating piece of transitional history, because after 2008, the design would change forever. Collectors often see the 2007 issue as the final chapter before the commemorative series of 2009. And the shield reverse of 2010, from a technical standpoint, the 2007 Lincoln cents were struck in 3 major mint facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia and Denver coins were business strikes intended for everyday use, while the San Francisco Mint produced proof issues with sharp mirrored fields and frosted devices, the composition of the coin remained the same as it had been since 1982, a core of 97. 5% zinc, with a thin plating of 2.5% copper, a major cost-saving measure introduced when the value of copper began to exceed the face value of the coin itself, but while the metal may have changed the visual familiarity of the Lincoln, portrait continued to bind generations together. When we examine the mintage numbers, the 2007 pennies were produced in enormous quantities, with billions struck across the two main mints. Yet despite these staggering numbers, not all coins are created. Equal small variations, errors, and condition differences can turn an otherwise common coin into a treasure worth many times its face value. Collectors pay close attention to the sharpness of the strike, the presence of doubling in the letters, and numbers die cracks, plating blisters, and other minting anomalies. The 2007 double die obverse varieties, where Lincoln's eye or lettering shows signs of doubling, are particularly desirable among error enthusiasts. Similarly, some 2007 cents exhibit misaligned dies-off center strikes or broad strikes, each creating unique pieces that can sell for far more than 1 cent in numismatic markets. The proof issues of 2007, especially those with deep cameo contrast, are also favorites among collectors, and high-grade examples certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC can achieve strong prices. The fact that the 2007 penny represents the final stretch of the memorial design makes pristine examples even more appealing to numismatists who understand the importance of transitional issues. But the story of the 2007 penny is not just about design and minting details. It also reflects the cultural and economic environment of the United States in the early 21st century. By 2007, America was already grappling with debates over the continued production of the penny as inflation eroded its practical value. Many argued that it cost more to produce and distribute the cent than it was worth in circulation, yet public sentiment and the deep cultural attachment to the Lincoln penny kept it alive. The debate over whether to retire the penny has raged for decades, and in 2007, those discussions were growing louder. Newspapers, editorials, and even congressional hearings questioned the future of the denomination. But through it all, the Lincoln cent endured. The 2007 issue stands as evidence of that resilience. Another fascinating aspect of the 2007 penny lies in its connection to what was about to come. The year 2009 would mark the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. And in anticipation, the United States Mint was preparing a series of 4 commemorative reverses depicting different stages of Lincoln's life, followed by a complete redesign featuring the Union Shield in 2010. So the 2007 penny is like a quiet before the storm. It is one of the last ordinary years before a wave of transformation washed over America's smallest coin. When collectors look back at this period, they often see 2007 as a bookmark, a bridge between the long, familiar memorial reverse era and the commemorative and modern designs that followed it. Even the artistry of Victor David Brenner's original portrait is worth pausing to appreciate. On the 2007 coin, his initials VDB appear subtly on the shoulder of Lincoln's bust, a detail that harks back to the original 1909 controversy when his initials were deemed too prominent and removed only to be restored later. In a more discreet fashion in this way, the 2007 penny carries not only Lincoln's enduring image, but also the story of its designer, whose work has become a permanent fixture in American numismatics. For 2 hours, one could explore every nuance of this coin, the history of the Lincoln cent, the debates over its future, the artistry of Brenner and Gasparo, the massive mintages and the rare varieties, the cultural significance of Lincoln in American memory, and the symbolic power of the memorial. On the reverse that was nearing the end of its run, the 2007 penny is not just a piece of zinc coated in copper. It is a chapter in a much larger story about how nations remember their leaders, how economies adapt to changing metal values, how ordinary Objects become historical documents, and how collectors find meaning and value in the smallest of details. When we look at the Lincoln penny, the year 2008 holds a unique and almost overlooked place in the history of American coinage because it represents the very last year of the original Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which had been introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, for almost 5 decades. The memorial reverse was one of the most familiar and recognizable images on American currency, a design seen in millions of hands every single day. But the 2008 issue is more than just another year in the long line of pennies. It is in many ways a farewell to an era, a coin that bridges the end of one chapter and the anticipation of another, because just 1 year later in 2009, the United States Mint would release the highly celebrated bicentennial Lincoln Cent program with 4 separate designs each depicting a chapter in Lincoln's life. So when collectors talk about the 2008 penny, they are not only speaking about the technical aspects of mintage or the variations of condition, they are talking about a historic bookend that closes the story of nearly 50 years of the memorial design and sets the stage for a national celebration of Lincoln's legacy. But what makes the 2008 Lincoln penny even more fascinating is that it comes during a time when the coin itself was undergoing significant controversy regarding its very existence. The rising cost of copper and zinc, the metals used to produce the coin, had created a paradox, where the face value of 1 cent was less than the cost of production, sparking intense debates about whether the penny should continue to be minted at all, while many argued for its elimination. Citing inefficiency, others defended it passionately. As a cultural symbol tied to American history and commerce, this economic and political context makes the 2008 penny not only a collectible piece of currency, but also a witness to a debate about the future of American money from a numismatic perspective. The 2008 Lincoln Cent is available in several different striking qualities, including the standard circulation strike, the satin finish coins from mint sets, and the proof issues that were struck with mirrored fields and frosted devices. What truly excites collectors are the high-grade examples with strong luster and minimal marks. Coins graded at the highest levels like MS-67 or PR-70 can command strong premiums in the collector marketplace, especially with the added appeal of being the final year of the memorial design. Furthermore, the Philadelphia and Denver mints each produced their own versions, and although no major recognized design varieties occurred in 2008, there remain die variations, errors, and striking anomalies that make the hunt for rare examples exciting for the numismatist. It is also worth noting that the design itself has layers of symbolism. The obverse portrait of Abraham Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner in 1909, is one of the longest-running coin portraits in United States history, and by 2008 it had already been on the penny for nearly a full century. The reverse design with the Lincoln Memorial created by Frank Gasparro was more than just an architectural rendering. It was symbolic of the enduring respect the nation held for Lincoln's leadership and sacrifice. And when you hold a 2008 penny, you are holding not just a coin, but a summation of American memory, art history, politics, and culture condensed into copper-plated zinc collectors also. Know that in the world of coins, timing is everything, and the 2008 penny sits at a fascinating crossroads. It closes the chapter of the memorial design while simultaneously raising anticipation for the 2009 Lincoln bicentennial cents, and it does so at a time when the United States Mint was expanding collector programs, experimenting with new minting technologies, and engaging with a growing numismatic audience across the country and the world. So when we discuss the 2008 penny, we are discussing far more than a coin. We are talking about a symbol of transition, an object that captures the debates of its time, and a piece of American heritage that collectors cherish today. When you look at the humble Lincoln penny, it may seem like just another small copper-colored coin that passes through millions of hands every single day. But when we stop and focus on the year 2008, we uncover a fascinating story that is far greater than the 1 cent face value stamped upon it, because the 2008 Lincoln penny marks the final chapter in the long-running era of the Lincoln Memorial design, a design that had dominated the reverse of the cent since 1959, and for nearly half a century, this design was one of the most familiar images in American coinage, instantly recognizable to every citizen, young or old. And when we arrive at 2008, we are holding in our hands not simply a coin, but the closing words of a 50-year-long story of artistry, symbolism, history, and transition. Because after this year, the memorial design would disappear forever, replaced in 2009 with the celebrated bicentennial reverses that honored the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The 2008 penny is important because it stands as a bridge between eras. It is the last breath of a familiar design and the foreshadowing of great changes to come, and when we examine it closely, we see how it represents more than just the image of the 16th president on the obverse and the stately Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. It represents the debates of its time, the economics of its production, the artistry of its engravers, and the cultural identity of a nation that still sees Lincoln as a central figure of its story. And if you consider that 2008 was also a year of great economic turbulence in the United States, you begin to realize that the very penny itself was under scrutiny in ways that had never been so sharply discussed before, because the cost to produce a penny in 2008 had risen above its own face value, with the price of zinc and copper climbing, rapidly sparking heated discussions among politicians, economists, and citizens about whether the penny should be retired altogether. This debate added an unusual kind of weight to the 2008 penny, making it more than just a continuation of a design series. It became a controversial coin, one that carried in its small frame a question about the future of American coinage itself. And yet, despite all of this controversy, the coin continued to be struck by the millions at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with proof issues and satin finish versions also produced for collectors. And while no dramatic new design varieties were introduced in that final year, the 2008 pennies hold a subtle power precisely because they represent the end of a monumental chapter. In the vast story of American money, there are certain coins that stand out, not just because of the metal they are struck on or the year they were minted, but because they tell a much bigger story about the history of the United States, its economy, its politics, its culture, and even its people. And one such coin that seems ordinary at first glance, yet holds a deep significance for collectors, historians, and investors alike, is the 2003 Lincoln penny. Now, when you look at a 2003 penny, you might think it is just another small, copper-colored coin that has passed through millions of hands across the nation. But the real story behind this coin takes us back more than a century to the beginning of the Lincoln cent itself. First issued in 1909, to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln cent became the longest-running coin design in American history, and by the time we get to the year 2003, we are not simply looking at a small piece of change, we are looking at a continuation of a tradition that has spanned world wars, economic booms, recessions, and even changes in the very way coins were produced. The 2003 Lincoln penny carries the image of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials, VDB, first sparked controversy back in 1909 when the coin was initially released. And this controversy over a tiny set of initials reminds us how much attention Americans paid to their coinage and how coins were not just money, but also symbols of national pride and artistic debate. By 2003, the coin still bore Lincoln's image on the obverse, with the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. A design that had been in place since 1959, when it replaced the wheat ears, reversed the memorial design itself, had significance because it not only honored Lincoln, but also depicted the very structure in Washington, D.C. that stood as a shrine to his memory. And remarkably, when you look closely at the coin, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated Inside the memorial, a detail that many Americans never noticed, but which made the coin unique in world numismatics by 2003. The United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents every year. But behind these numbers lies the fascinating question of what the penny actually represented in a modern economy. By the early 2000s, the cost of producing a single cent was nearly equal to or even greater than its face value, sparking debates in Congress and among economists about whether the penny should be eliminated altogether. Yet, despite these debates, the coin persisted, and collectors continued to cherish certain years and mint marks because of their relative rarity or the small differences in strike and finish that could make one coin worth hundreds or even thousands of times more than its 1 cent face value. The 2003 penny was struck at several mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the latter producing proof coins of particularly high quality. That were prized by collectors, these proof coins were struck on specially prepared planchets with polished dies, giving them a mirror-like finish that set them apart from regular circulation strikes, and this in itself ties into the long tradition of proof coinage, which has roots going back to the earliest days of the U.S. Mint, when proofs were struck for archival purposes or to showcase the beauty of a design to dignitaries and officials. The 2003 penny also sits at an interesting crossroads in history, because it came just 6 years before the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the 2009 redesign of the cent, which saw 4 different reverse designs representing different stages of Lincoln's life. So when we look at the 2003 cent, we are in fact looking at one of the last issues of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which had been in circulation for half a century, and this makes the 2003 penny not just another year in the long series of Lincoln cents, but a representative of the final era of a design that millions of Americans grew up with, handling daily in their pockets and piggy banks. But there is more to the story, because when collectors study coins like the 2003 Lincoln cent, they are not just studying the design or the mint mark. They are also looking for errors, varieties, and unique anomalies that can make a coin stand out among the billions produced. Double dies, repunched mint marks off center strikes, and other errors have long fascinated collectors because they transform what seems like an ordinary coin into a rarity worth far more than its denomination. And the 2003 cents are no exception, with known examples of striking errors that command high prices in the collector's market. And all of this connects to the larger tradition of American coin collecting itself, which has grown from a niche hobby into a global market, with millions of participants following auctions, grading services, and specialized publications to track values and trends. When we trace this back, we see how coins like the 2003 penny are tied to the rise of third-party grading companies like PCGS and NGC, which establish standards for coin quality and authenticity, making it possible for collectors and investors alike to trust the market and build collections that would hold value over time. The story of the 2003 Lincoln penny is also a story about the materials of coinage, because while most people casually refer to it as copper, the truth is that since 1982, the penny has actually been composed of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, making it vastly different from the earlier cents that were made of nearly pure copper. And this change was itself a reflection of the changing economics of metal supply and production costs in the late 20th century, meaning that by the time we reached 2003, the coin you held in your hand was in fact more zinc than copper, a detail that may seem minor, but which dramatically altered the way the coin aged, corroded, and even sounded when dropped on a table. And so when we bring all these elements together, the design, the minting process, the economic debates, the historical symbolism, and the collector interest, we realize that the 2003 Lincoln penny is not just a tiny piece of metal, but a chapter in a much larger narrative about the United States. It is about how we remember our past through figures like Abraham Lincoln. It is about how our government wrestles with the practical costs of producing money. It is about how art, politics, and economics come together on a surface barely larger than a thumbnail, And it is about how generations of Americans have built collections, studied varieties, and preserved these coins as treasures for the future. So, as we take a deep dive into the history of the 2003 Lincoln penny, we will uncover the layers of meaning that this small coin holds, the artistic choices of Victor David Brenner that still resonate almost a century later, the political debates over the usefulness of the penny in a digital age. The stories of collectors who discovered rare varieties in their pocket changed the role of the mint in shaping national identity and the way that even the most ordinary coin can become a window into the story of a nation. That is why when you see a 2003 Lincoln penny, it should never be dismissed as just spare change, because behind its copper sheen lies a story rich enough to fill not just a conversation, but an entire exploration of American history, money, art, and culture, stretching across 2 full hours of discovery and fascination. Imagine holding in your hand a small piece of copper-coated zinc that to most people is worth just 1 cent, but to the trained eye of a collector can open the doors to an entire world of American history, numismatic artistry, hidden rarities, and untold value. The Lincoln penny of 2001 may appear at first glance to be nothing more than a modern coin tossed into change jars, glove compartments, and pockets across the nation. But beneath its ordinary surface lies a fascinating story that connects the earliest days of Abraham Lincoln's commemoration to the evolving methods of the United States Mint, the technological leaps of modern coinage production, the quirks of mint errors and varieties, and the cultural significance of a coin that millions see every day, yet few stop to appreciate. To understand the Lincoln penny of 2001, you must go back to the origins of the Lincoln cent itself, a coin first struck in 1909 to mark the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was a revolutionary moment in American coinage history, because never before had a United States coin featured a real historical figure. Presidents were deliberately avoided in earlier designs in favor of allegorical symbols of liberty. But Theodore Roosevelt, who sought to elevate the beauty of American coinage, pushed for Lincoln's image to appear on the cent, and the result was Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of the 16th president staring steadfastly to the right with a design that instantly connected with the American public. The wheat ears reverse became an emblem of progress and prosperity, lasting until 1959, when the centennial of Lincoln's birth and the 150th anniversary of his birth brought about the replacement with the Lincoln memorial reverse designed by Frank Gasparro, which would then remain on the coin all the way until 2008. The 2001 Lincoln penny falls into this long tradition, and it represents a fascinating period in the cent's history, for by this time the composition of the penny had long since changed from the bronze alloy of the early 20th century to the copper-plated zinc that began in 1982 as a response to rising copper prices. The 2001 penny is therefore a product of this modern era, consisting of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, a choice that kept costs down, but also introduced new challenges such as susceptibility to corrosion and plating bubbles issues that collectors examine closely when determining quality and rarity. Millions upon millions of 2001 Lincoln pennies were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and because of the sheer volume of production, this year's coins are typically considered common, yet this is precisely where the story becomes interesting. For among the billions of coins struck each year, the minting process inevitably produced varieties and errors, and these varieties are what elevate certain 2001 pennies from everyday change to numismatic treasures. Doubled, dies repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, and other anomalies have been identified among 2001 issues, making them highly desirable to collectors who know what to look for. While the average person sees a penny as trivial, the seasoned numismatist sees the potential for a valuable discovery right in their pocket change to appreciate the significance of the 2001 Lincoln penny. One must also look at the broader context of the time period in which it was minted. The early 2000s were a moment of transition for American coinage. The state quarter program had just begun in 1999, and it was captivating the public in a way no coin program had done for decades. While quarters grabbed the headlines, the humble Lincoln penny continued its quiet circulation, anchoring itself as the most familiar coin in the United States economy. It was the everyday workhorse of commerce, used in vending machines, cash registers, and savings jars across every American household, even as debates raged about whether the penny should be eliminated altogether due to its low purchasing power. In 2001, it remained as ubiquitous as ever, its presence reassuring a connection to history that stretched back almost a century at that point to the original Lincoln. Designed from 1909 for collectors, the 2001 Lincoln cent offers several areas of focus, one being high-grade uncirculated examples, coins that have never seen circulation and that retain their original luster. These can be found in mint sets and rolls, and when preserved properly, they can grade out to the highest levels on the numismatic grading scale, such as MS-67 or MS-68, which are rare for modern issues and command strong premiums on the market. Another area is proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint in 2001, with mirror-like fields and frosted details that elevate Lincoln's portrait, and the Lincoln Memorial reverse into miniature works of art. These proof issues were produced specifically for collectors and remain a highlight of modern numismatic collections. The history of the 2001 Lincoln penny is also tied to the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln himself, whose image on the coin is a daily reminder of the man who guided the nation through its darkest hour and preserved the Union for future generations. To many Americans, Lincoln's presence on the cent is more than symbolic. It is a link to values of unity, freedom, and perseverance, which is why, even after more than a century, the Lincoln penny has never been replaced. With another design, when you dive into the details of the 2001 penny, you also uncover fascinating stories of production technology. The United States Mint, by this time, was using high-speed presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. Dies were crafted with precision, yet even so slight imperfections would result in collectible varieties that today excite numismatists, studying the coins under magnification. There are known examples of 2001 doubled die obverses where Lincoln's profile or inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" show doubling visible to the naked eye. In strong cases, these varieties can elevate a coin worth 1 cent into the hundreds of dollars. Similarly, repunched mint marks, particularly from the Denver Mint, provide a glimpse into the old hand-punching process that was nearing its end by the turn of the century. These varieties not only add collectible value, but also serve as snapshots of the minting technology of their time. By analyzing the 2001 penny from every angle, historical, cultural, technological, and numismatic, you begin to see that what seems like the smallest coin can actually carry the largest stories it embodies. Over 90 years of design tradition, it reflects the economic realities of metal composition changes. It showcases the precision and the flaws of minting technology. It reminds us of the enduring power of Abraham Lincoln's legacy, and it provides a playground for collectors searching for those rare varieties and perfect high-grade examples that transform pocket change into treasure. In this way, the 2001 Lincoln penny is more than a coin. It is a chapter in the never-ending story of American money, a story that links past, present, and future in the palm of your hand. And as we unfold the details over the course of this exploration, you will come to see that even in a coin as small and common as the 2001 penny, there lies enough history value and intrigue to fill hours of study and captivate anyone who dares to look closer.